Most men live enslaved by illusions, clinging to charm, luck, or talent. But power does not belong to the fortunate. It belongs to the one who wields a hidden trait that bends others into obedience without them even realizing it. In this video, we expose the single weapon that grants you an unfair advantage over every rival you face. History is not written by the virtuous, but by those cunning enough to see reality as it truly is. In the theater of human affairs, men exhaust themselves chasing acceptance, status, and fleeting approval. Yet, beneath these games, one trait rises above all others. A silent force that allows its bearer to influence, manipulate, and dominate without resistance. The masses are blind to it. The weak recoil from it. Those who master it ascend to a level where rules no longer bind them. Today, we shall dissect this trait. Not as moralists, but as strategists who know that survival belongs not to the good, but to the calculating. Men believe they act upon truth. But in reality, they act upon perception. What they think is true controls them more than what is true. Ask yourself, how often have you seen a lie command more loyalty than a fact? How often has reputation destroyed a man long before evidence appeared? The answer is constant. For in the realm of human affairs, perception outweighs reality. This is not a new insight. Julius Caesar understood it when he crossed the Rubicon. The act itself was reckless, but the image of unstoppable resolve made his enemies crumble before battle was even fought. It was not the legions that first conquered Rome. It was the perception that resistance was futile. Do you think power belongs to those who are simply stronger or smarter? No, it belongs to those who manage appearances. The skilled manipulator knows that men do not study facts. They respond to symbols, to impressions, to illusions carefully woven into their minds. Consider reputation. A man may be virtuous in private, yet if whispers brand him as corrupt, suspicion will erode his influence. Another man may be rotten to the core, yet if he wears the mask of honor, people will trust him with their lives. Which of the two has power? The one who understands that image eclipses substance. Psychology confirms this brutal truth. Cognitive biases shape every judgment you make. The halo effect, where one positive trait blinds us to 1,000 flaws. Authority bias, where mere symbols of rank compel obedience. First impressions, so powerful they override years of contrary evidence. And confirmation bias, where once a belief is planted, people twist reality itself to protect it. These are not accidents. They are the strings by which rulers move the masses. Think of modern politics. A speech filled with empty promises can ignite more devotion than decades of quiet competence. Why? Because the spectacle matters more than the substance. Because humans are not seekers of truth. They are seekers of meaning. And meaning is manufactured through perception. Now pause. Do you see how this can serve you? If you chase raw truth, you will be crushed by those who know how to shape appearances. If you refuse to play the game, others will define your image for you, and it will be their story, not yours, that the world believes. History punishes the knave. Consider Richard III of England. Perhaps he was not the monster Shakespeare painted, but his enemies shaped his image as a hunchbacked usurper, and it sealed his fate more than any battlefield did. Meanwhile, Napoleon crowned himself emperor under the illusion of destiny. One man undone by perception, another elevated by it. Which one will you resemble? Do not misunderstand me. This is not a call to deceit without purpose. It is a call to strategy. Even the purest truth requires framing, or else it dies unheard. A philosopher who cannot dress his ideas in persuasive form becomes irrelevant. A leader who cannot project confidence invites rebellion. A man who cannot command how he is seen will be seen however others choose. So what must you do? First, guard your image as a fortress. Let no rumor spread unchecked. Respond not with desperation, but with control. Silence when silence strengthens you. Clarity when words destroy doubt. Second, craft impressions deliberately. Do not merely be competent, appear competent. Do not merely be fearless, appear fearless. The difference between reality and appearance is often irrelevant, because the crowd sees only what you present. Third, study the weaknesses of others. Perception is also your weapon against them. expose their contradictions, magnify their failures, plant seeds of doubt, and watch how quickly others define them by shadows instead of substance. And finally, understand this: men cling to illusions, not because they are weak, but because illusions give them comfort. They would rather follow a confident liar than a hesitant truth teller. This is not cynicism, it is survival. If you fail to control perception, you surrender your life to the narratives written by others. So reflect. What story do others tell about you when you are not present? Do you leave an impression of strength or of fragility? Do they see inevitability in your actions or hesitation in your voice? If you cannot answer, then you have already forfeited your advantage, for power rests not in reality. It rests in the shadows cast upon reality, and those shadows bend to the hands that shape them. Remember this as we move forward. For perception may grant you influence, but it is only the first weapon in your arsenal. There is another trait, colder and more dangerous, that ensures no mask ever cracks. And without it, even the sharpest illusion will collapse. Power is not seized by those who burn with emotion. It is seized by those who remain unmoved while others lose control. The battlefield of life belongs to the man who wears the mask of composure. Think for a moment. How many times have you witnessed someone ruin themselves not by failure, but by reaction? An insult, a betrayal, a minor setback, these are enough to send most men into rage, despair, or panic. Their weakness is not the event itself. Their weakness is the inability to master their own response. This is where true power begins. Control of yourself is control over others. For when you appear calm while others tremble, you project superiority, and superiority breeds obedience. History is filled with examples. Consider Octavian, later Augustus. He faced civil wars, plots, and rivals who underestimated him. Yet he never allowed anger or fear to be read on his face. He spoke softly, calculated every move, and let others exhaust themselves in passion. In the end, his composure made him emperor, while fiery men like Mark Antony destroyed themselves. Contrast this with Alexander the Great. Brilliant, yes. But when his temper overtook him, he murdered his own trusted general, Cletus. That act of uncontrolled rage weakened his authority and sowed seeds of distrust among his men. Even a conqueror of worlds can be undone by a single moment of lost composure. Now, ask yourself, how do others see you when pressure strikes? Do they see calm resolve, or do they see cracks in your mask? If you betray your emotions too freely, you hand your enemies the keys to your downfall. They will learn which words provoke you, which insults disarm you, which fears expose you. And they will use them as weapons. Psychology makes this plain. Emotional contagion shows that people mirror the emotions of those around them. If you radiate panic, others panic. If you radiate confidence, others stabilize. By maintaining composure, you not only protect yourself, you shape the state of everyone who watches you. Think of negotiations. The man who waits silently while his opponent babbles nervously always gains advantage. Think of relationships. The one who responds with cool indifference rather than desperate pleading commands respect, while the other becomes a slave to emotion. Think of leadership. The general who smiles calmly as cannon fire erupts inspires soldiers more than any speech could. The mask of composure is not the absence of emotion. It is the discipline to conceal it. Inside, you may feel anger, fear, or grief. But outside, you remain unshaken. This is not hypocrisy. It is strategy. For men are not guided by your inner world. They are guided by the performance you present. Consider the courtroom. A guilty man may win sympathy if he appears calm, dignified, unbroken. An innocent man may lose his case if he appears erratic, desperate, or unstable. Truth matters less than presence. Reality bends before appearance, and appearance begins with composure. So what must you do? First, train yourself to pause before reaction. The pause is your shield. It denies your enemies the satisfaction of watching you break. It gives you time to calculate, to choose the most effective response instead of the most impulsive one. Second, practice neutrality in expression. A face unreadable is a fortress no arrow can pierce. Let others reveal themselves while you remain veiled. The more they speak, the more they betray. The less you reveal, the more they imagine, and imagination often creates an aura greater than truth. Third, use composure as a weapon. Silence in the right moment can suffocate. A calm smile in the face of attack can unnerve. An unshaken posture during chaos can convince others you are destined to prevail. Your mask does not merely protect, it intimidates. But remember, the mask is not for others alone. It reshapes you as well. The more you practice composure, the more resilient you become. The mask becomes the man. And when you can endure storms without flinching, you ascend beyond the reach of those still ruled by their nerves. Now consider this carefully. Every rival you face is watching you, probing you, searching for cracks. If they find none, they will fear you. If they find even one, they will strike. So tell me, when the pressure mounts, will you crumble like Antony or rise like Augustus? Will you be enslaved by passion, or will you wear the mask that bends men to your will? Hold on to this thought. For composure may make you untouchable, but it is useless if you cannot exploit what lies behind the masks of others. To dominate, you must not only master yourself, you must master their weaknesses. Every man carries within him a hidden fracture, a weakness buried under pride, concealed by words, yet exposed to the eyes of the observant. Find this weakness, and you hold his leash. You may believe strength dominates, but strength alone is blunt, expensive, and unreliable. Subtlety is sharper. To rule others, you do not need chains. You need only discover where they are already shackled by fear, desire, or vanity. Ask yourself, what truly moves men? Is it reason? Rarely. Is it honor? Occasionally. More often, it is insecurity, hunger for approval, terror of rejection, lust for gain. These frailties drive their choices more than their virtues ever will. Consider the Borgias, masters of Italian politics. They thrived not because they were invincible, but because they uncovered the frailties of every ally and enemy. A rival's greed could be fed with gifts until loyalty was purchased. Another's vanity could be inflated with titles until he became predictable. Even fear was a currency. Whisper threats in the right ear, and men destroyed themselves without a sword being drawn. Do you see the pattern? The clever strategist never wastes energy confronting a man at his strongest. He isolates him at his weakest. A fortress is impenetrable where the walls are thick, but every fortress has a neglected corner, a crumbling stone. Strike there, and the whole structure collapses. Psychology teaches us the same truth. Look at attachment insecurities. How fear of abandonment drives people to cling, to submit, to endure humiliation. Observe status anxiety. How fragile egos crave recognition, making them vulnerable to flattery. Notice the scarcity effect. How men chase what they think they cannot have, often ignoring what is already theirs. These are not flaws in a few. They are universal cracks in the human design. And to the one who sees clearly, they are doors waiting to be opened. Let us descend into practical terrain. Imagine you are in negotiation. Your opponent insists on toughness. He speaks loudly, slams the table, postures as though unbreakable. Most would see strength. But the strategist asks, why does he need to project it so desperately? Is it not because he fears being seen as weak? Strike his insecurity subtly. Question his reliability, delay your answers, undermine his certainty. Watch how his mask crumbles, or think of relationships. Many parade independence, yet secretly fear abandonment. A calculated withdrawal of attention can turn such a person into a servant of their own fear. They chase you, not because you force them, but because their weakness forces them. Even on the battlefield of reputation, weakness is the lever. Caesar knew that his enemies feared chaos more than his rise. He presented himself as the guarantor of order. Their fear made them accept his domination. He did not win them with logic. He won them by offering shelter against the storm that terrified them. Now reflect on yourself. Do you even know your own weaknesses? Or have others already exploited them? The man who cannot identify his fractures is already ruled by someone who has. Every insult that provokes you, every desire that blinds you, every fear that paralyzes you, these are chains in another man's hands. So how do you sharpen your vision to uncover weakness in others? First, observe reactions under stress. When men are pressured, they betray their deepest fears. Second, listen for patterns in speech. What a man repeats often, his pride, his complaints, his boasts, always point to insecurity. Third, test subtly. A small insult, a minor temptation, a slight delay, see what provokes. The mask will slip. It always slips. And once it does, act decisively. Exploit does not mean reckless cruelty. It means strategic use. A rival's greed can be used to bait him into traps. A subordinate's vanity can be used to keep him obedient. A lover's fear can be used to secure loyalty. Weakness is not merely a vulnerability. It is leverage if you are ruthless enough to seize it. But here lies the darker truth. Exploiting weakness is not about others alone. It is about you. If you are unwilling to use it, others will. If you recoil from this reality, you leave yourself defenseless in a world where no one else hesitates. Mercy has its place, but never when it blinds you to advantage. So ask yourself again, do you wish to be ruled by your own cracks, or do you wish to be the one who sees the fractures in others? Power belongs to the latter. Always. Remember, every man has a soft place where the dagger may slip. The only question is, will you strike first, or will you bleed for someone else's cunning? And yet, striking weakness is only half the art. Sometimes silence itself is sharper than any attack. Sometimes restraint carves deeper wounds than violence. Words are cheap. They spill endlessly from the mouths of the weak. The powerful, however, know that silence often wounds deeper than speech. Think carefully. When someone insults you, do you rush to defend yourself? When accused, do you drown the air with excuses? That impulse is weakness. For the more you explain, the more power you hand to your accuser. Silence, instead, leaves your enemy uncertain. It denies them the satisfaction of seeing your reaction, and uncertainty breeds fear. History proves this again and again. Consider Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. Surrounded by rivals, he mastered the art of restraint. While others argued furiously in public councils, Charles listened in silence. His enemies revealed everything in their noise, their fears, their rivalries, their desperation. Meanwhile, his silence gave him the aura of depth, as if his thoughts ran deeper than theirs. He gained more by holding his tongue than his armies ever could by force. Contrast this with more impulsive rulers. Take Louis XVI of France. When confronted by revolution, he blurted explanations, denials, and reassurances. His words revealed his panic, and his throne crumbled. Had he cloaked himself in silence, appearing unmoved, perhaps the crowd would have doubted their strength. Instead, his noise confirmed their power. Ask yourself, when you speak, do you strengthen your position or do you expose it? Do your words make you seem controlled or desperate to be believed? The truth is brutal. Most people speak not to persuade, but to relieve their own anxiety. They cannot endure the tension of silence. But it is exactly that tension which grants you power. Psychology lays bare this principle. The human mind hates uncertainty. When you say nothing, others fill the void with their own fears and desires. They imagine reasons, they project meanings, they obsess over your restraint. Your silence becomes louder than words because the mind cannot leave a blank unfilled. Think of interrogation rooms. A suspect who talks endlessly reveals contradictions. A suspect who stays silent unnerves the interrogator. The silence itself becomes an accusation, a shield, a weapon. Or think of negotiations. The most dangerous move is not shouting demands. It is pausing after the other speaks, letting them drown in their own discomfort. They will reveal more, concede more, just to escape the silence. Even in personal relationships, silence dominates. The lover who withdraws words suddenly creates panic. The friend who refuses to answer immediately multiplies his value. Attention, like all resources, becomes scarce when wrapped in silence, and scarcity breeds desire. But let us be clear, silence is not passive. It is not weakness. It is an active weapon when wielded deliberately. There is a vast difference between silence born of fear and silence chosen as strategy. How then do you sharpen this weapon? First, discipline your tongue. Do not answer every provocation. Do not defend every slight. Often the most effective response is none at all. By refusing to engage, you rise above the pettiness that consumes others. Second, Master the pause. Before replying, let silence hang. The pause unsettles. It makes your eventual words seem heavier, more deliberate, more dangerous. Third, use silence to test loyalty. Withdraw your voice and observe. Do allies rush to fill the void with gossip? Do rivals panic, revealing their impatience? Silence forces men to show their nature. Finally, weaponize ambiguity. When you remain silent, others must guess. And in guessing, they reveal themselves. Some will assume your silence means approval. Others will fear it means disapproval. Either way, they act on illusions you created simply by withholding speech. Remember, the one who controls silence controls the battlefield of meaning. Noise reveals, noise weakens. Silence, when chosen, intimidates. Now reflect. How often have you given away your position by speaking too quickly? How many times have you surrendered leverage by rushing to explain? Each word you regret was a weapon you placed in another man's hand. Each silence you endured would have been a blade in your own. Do not forget, those who can master silence inspire awe. Their presence feels heavier, their words rarer, their influence undeniable. Men fear the silent one, for they cannot predict him. And fear is the foundation of obedience. So ask yourself, will you continue to chatter like the common crowd, or will you learn the elegance of restraint? Will you let silence guard your power, or will you betray it with your tongue? Hold this thought, for silence alone is not enough. There will come moments when you must act, not with quiet, but with ruthless precision. And if you cannot strike when the moment demands, your silence becomes emptiness. Mercy has its place. But mercy untempered by calculation is weakness disguised as virtue. Those who hesitate when opportunity demands ruthlessness soon find themselves ruled by those who did not. Ask yourself, how many chances have you lost because you were too slow to strike? How many enemies recovered because you showed restraint when their destruction was within reach? The world does not reward hesitation. It devours it. History confirms this without mercy. Consider Caesar Borgia. His power rose not merely from ambition, but from ruthless precision. When a governor he appointed ruled cruelly, Caesar allowed the man's brutality to terrify the province. Then, in a calculated gesture, he had that governor executed publicly. The people feared Caesar's power, but loved his justice. He eliminated both arrival and descent in one stroke. That is not reckless cruelty. It is calculated ruthlessness. Now contrast him with those who lacked it. Consider Pompey the Great. He had Julius Caesar cornered in the early stages of their conflict. One decisive strike could have ended Caesar's rise forever. Instead, Pompey hesitated. He allowed Caesar to gather momentum, and that hesitation sealed Rome's fate. In politics, in war, in life, the opportunity that passes once rarely returns. So what does this mean for you? It means you must learn the art of striking without delay when the moment is ripe. Do not confuse patience with hesitation. Patience waits for the opening. Hesitation lets it slip away. Psychology explains why so many fail here. Loss aversion makes men more afraid of making a mistake than eager to seize a gain. Empathy clouds judgment, making them pity those who would never pity them. Social conditioning teaches them to be agreeable, to avoid offense, to preserve peace even when their survival demands war. And so they falter. They surrender their advantage not to a stronger enemy, but to their own conscience. Do you see the danger? The ruthless one does not struggle with such hesitation. He sees opportunity, weighs its cost, and strikes with precision. Not out of rage, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Think of business. Two competitors fight for dominance. One discovers a weakness in the other's foundation. Perhaps a supply chain vulnerability, perhaps a scandal waiting to surface. The timid man says, it would be dishonorable to exploit it. The ruthless man says, if I do not, he will do the same to me. Guess which one survives, or think of relationships. Many allow themselves to be strung along, humiliated, used, because they fear the ruthlessness of cutting ties. But the one who severs cleanly, without apology, preserves his dignity and his power. Decisive cruelty in the short term often prevents long-term decay. Yet let me make something clear. Reckless violence, blind cruelty, uncontrolled vengeance, These are not strength. They are signs of weakness, of men ruled by their own emotions. Calculated ruthlessness is different. It is cold. It is precise. It chooses the right moment, the right target, the right degree. It kills a single man to save 1,000. It sacrifices a pawn to capture the king. So how do you cultivate it? First, train your mind to see clearly. Strip away sentiment when decisions demand clarity. Ask not, how do I feel? But, what secures my power? Second, prepare yourself before the moment arrives. The man who debates with himself in the moment of crisis is already lost. Know in advance what lines you are willing to cross and when. Third, strike cleanly. Do not prolong cruelty. Do not leave wounds half open. A swift and decisive act is more feared and more respected than endless petty cruelty. Finally, disguise ruthlessness behind necessity. Frame it as justice, as duty, as inevitability. Men accept harshness if it seems purposeful. They rebel only when it seems chaotic or self-indulgent. So reflect. When your moment comes, will you hesitate like Pompey or strike like Caesar? Will you let pity unravel your advantage? Or will you wield ruthlessness as the scalpel that secures your survival? Remember this, the world forgives many sins, but it never forgives weakness. And the greatest weakness of all is failing to act when power is within your grasp. But even ruthlessness has its limits. For power does not last through fear alone. It endures when others believe your dominance is inevitable, and that illusion, the aura of inevitability, is the next step in mastering human nature. The highest form of power is not force. It is inevitability. When men believe your rise cannot be stopped, they stop resisting. When they see your dominance as destiny, they surrender willingly. Ask yourself, why do armies collapse before the first battle? Why do rulers command loyalty even in weakness? The answer is simple. Men obey not only strength, but the appearance that strength cannot fail. History is filled with examples. Consider Genghis Khan. His armies spread terror not merely through victory, but through the reputation that his advance was unstoppable. Entire cities surrendered before a single arrow was fired. Resistance seemed pointless because the Mongol tide appeared inevitable. Look also at Napoleon. His soldiers marched into battle convinced of his destiny. They believed fate itself walked beside him. That belief, more than cannons, won him victories. The aura of inevitability magnified his strength until the day it shattered at Waterloo, and with it, his empire. Do you see the pattern? Power thrives on perception. Once people believe you cannot be defeated, they no longer try. Your enemies fracture. Your allies grow obedient, and those who once doubted now call you chosen by fortune. Psychology confirms this. Humans fear uncertainty more than pain. They long for stability, for the sense that events follow a script. When you project inevitability, you provide that script. You offer the comfort of aligning with a force too great to resist. Think of elections. A candidate framed as unbeatable attracts donors, supporters, and momentum not because he is truly invincible, but because people fear wasting their loyalty on a loser. Victory feeds perception, perception feeds victory, and soon the myth becomes reality. Now turn this insight toward yourself. How do others perceive your path? Do you appear uncertain, easily shaken, doubtful of your own direction? Or do you project the image of someone whose success is unavoidable, whose ambition is carved into stone? Remember, inevitability is an illusion you must construct. No man is truly unstoppable. But if others believe you are, they will create the very conditions that make it so. They will follow you more willingly. They will resist you less fiercely. They will shape their choices around your rise, as if compelled by destiny itself. How do you build this aura? First, consistency. Do not appear erratic. A steady path, even if slow, convinces others of inevitability. People trust what seems certain, even if it moves gradually. Second, control appearances. Never show desperation. Never appear reactive. Every move must look deliberate, chosen, purposeful. The illusion of control creates the illusion of destiny. Third, magnify victories. Celebrate even small successes as signs of unstoppable progress. Frame setbacks not as failures, but as steps in a larger plan. Men do not follow perfection. They follow confidence wrapped in narrative. Fourth, eliminate doubt swiftly. Any whisper that your rise may falter must be silenced. Doubt spreads like disease. Stamp it out before it infects others. The aura of inevitability cannot coexist with uncertainty. Now ask yourself, why do crowds worship leaders even when those leaders are flawed? It is because they believe those leaders are carried by history itself. Better to kneel before destiny than be crushed by it. Better to obey inevitability than defy it and be broken. The cruel truth is this: men love winners not out of loyalty, but out of fear of being aligned with losers. The aura of inevitability ensures you are always seen as the former, never the latter. But beware, the moment cracks appear, the illusion can collapse overnight. Napoleon's invincibility ended with one defeat. Alexander's empire dissolved the moment his death shattered the myth of his destiny. The aura is powerful, but fragile. It must be guarded with vigilance. So what will you project? Will you stumble visibly, letting rivals sense weakness? Or will you cloak yourself in inevitability, forcing the world to believe resistance is futile? Understand this clearly: inevitability is not about truth. It is about perception, and perception is the battlefield on which all power is won or lost. So carry yourself as if the outcome is already written. Speak not as if you hope. Speak as if you know. Act not as if you seek approval. Act as if you are already enthroned. The world bends to those who appear destined. But remember, this is the final illusion. It can elevate you above all men, or it can destroy you the moment it breaks. The question is whether you can wield it without ever letting the mask slip. For destiny is not given, it is forged, and only the few who master inevitability rise beyond the grasp of ordinary men. Power is never taken openly. It is taken silently, in the shadows, beneath the awareness of those you rule. The greatest control is not when people fear your chains. It is when they never realize they are bound. When they think they are free, yet move exactly as you desire. This is the art of ruling without resistance. This is how empires are built: in whispers, not wars. Ask yourself, would you rather command obedience through force or devotion through illusion? Would you rather fight every battle or make the world believe you cannot be challenged? If you grasp this, you already stand above the crowd. For most chase visible power, while the wise understand the deepest power is invisible. Now I ask you, what did you see here that others will not? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you seek more of these dark strategies. And share this lesson with those bold enough to hear it. Because the fewer who understand these truths, the stronger they remain in your hands.